Rumor has it that when I dip, you dip, we dip. Today we're going to test that theory with a delicious spinach and artichoke dip inside of a bread bowl. Why a bread bowl, you may ask? Well, it's bread. It's delicious. Duh. And instead of one giant bowl for everyone to share, in today's world of separation, everybody gets their own bowl. That's right. You get a bowl. You get a bowl. Everybody gets a... Alright, you know where I was going with that. Let's get to our dough. I'm using one of my favorites, the Jim Leahy no-knead bread recipe. Awesome recipe, super easy to do, attached below. So we will start with our bread flour. You can use all-purpose, but bread flour I find comes better. And then our yeast, our salt, give that a quick stir to get everything incorporated, and then add in our water, and that's pretty much it. You give it a nice little stir just to get everything going, but there's no kneading involved, so you just stir it until it forms a shaggy dough like this, and then you cover it for as long as possible, at least 12 to 18 hours with plastic wrap or a towel, and just let that sit overnight. The longer you let it sit, the better, as that texture will really develop very nicely for us without any work. And you can see after about, I want to say this was 16 or 17 hours for me, it really puffs up super nicely, no work involved whatsoever. You just want to kind of poke it down and get kind of the excess air out of there and flatten it up a little bit. Once you get the air out of it, we can move this over to our work surface, which we are going to generously coat with tons of flour, just enough so it won't stick to the work surface, and then this should just come out of our bowl with a little bit of effort onto that floured surface, and there you have it. All we want to do now is start shaping this. If you're going with one big round or loaf, you could just start shaping this piece, but I want 4 individual equal-sized portions, so I'm going to cut them down equally into these shapes, and then I will just start rolling them, kind of rounding them into circular shapes, so we get that nice circular round bread bowl looking shape. Now you could use a kitchen towel, but I'm just using some parchment and hitting it with a little bit of flour just to be safe so these won't stick, because we're going to let these proof one more time for 2 hours just to get them really nice and puffy. It's really going to help us get a really nice puffy bread bowl with great interior and exterior. After 2 hours, you can see that they puffed up even more, and these bad boys are ready for the oven. Now, whenever I bake bread these days, I use my handy dandy pizza stone. It's cheap, it works awesome, so I will just let it preheat in the oven and then put the dough onto it. This is at 450, and if you're doing a larger size, it's probably going to take you 45 minutes to an hour, but since these are cut so small, it only took me 15 minutes, and when they come out, you can see they smell amazing. The texture is awesome. They look perfect. I like to just get them a little bit golden brown, so I will hit them with a little bit of oil spray or just brush them with butter, and they get that nice shiny exterior, and even helps with the flavor. Now, you're going to want to let these cool a little bit because they are super hot out of the oven, but once they cool a little bit, we'll grab a serrated knife and just kind of go on an angle, kind of diagonally, and just go circular, watching out for your fingers to just kind of cut the top off, and if you do it right, it should come out with this kind of pyramid shape, so you have a little bit of the bread there as well. And I like to cut these up into kind of rough dices and serve them with the dip itself. And then with the bread bowl itself, you can keep kind of ripping more out as you go with your fingers or cutting it, but you know, you can kind of do these any shape that you want. Some may be a little bit more shallow, but these things can really take a ton of dip. I actually wish that I stuffed mine a little bit more, but you can really hollow these things out. You just obviously want to be careful not to go through the sides or obviously through the bottom, because then you're going to have some leaking problems. But then when you hollow them all out, they should look something like this. Again, mine all look a little bit different, and I like it that way. But now that we have these, what are we going to stuff them with? Well, it's time for Monsieur spinach dip, and this is going to be the easiest spinach dip you'll ever see. We'll get a little bit of oil in a pan and a quarter of a diced onion. I cut it super small because I don't want big pieces, but it adds lots of flavor. I'll add a few fat tablespoons of garlic that has been minced very fine. We'll let this cook down over medium heat for a few minutes just to get it translucent and release the flavor. Season it with salt and pepper. And now here's our spinach. This is frozen spinach because I believe it works better for this application. Just my personal opinion. You can use whatever kind of spinach you want. This is about 12 ounces, and we'll just kind of let that cook down and mellow with the flavors. Seasoning it. Just don't go too heavy on the salt for now, but definitely lots of pepper. And now I'm going with the artichokes. These are just canned artichokes that I've just given a rough chop to, about 8 to 10 ounces, almost equal portion, but a little bit less than spinach, but you can go with whatever ratio you want. Again, you're just going to want to cook this down, taste it. Don't go crazy on the salt yet, because we're going to add some ingredients that might make it saltier, but season it with plenty of pepper. Now that this mixture is good to go, we'll throw in our 8-ounce bar of cream cheese and turn off the heat. Just so much easier to mix through while this is still hot, and you definitely want to let your cream cheese sit at room temperature before you throw it in there, just so it mixes much easier. And then we'll throw in a little bit of sour cream, about 2 tablespoons for the tang and creaminess, and then a heaping tablespoon of mayonnaise. Not quite as much. I think a little bit goes a long way with this. It does add a very nice creaminess to it, so about half as much for the sour cream. And then we'll throw in a ton of Parmesan cheese. This gives it a great cheesiness, obviously, but also a little bit of a salty bite. Season it with some pepper, mix everything up very well, and you can see here it really thickens up nicely, as obviously Obviously it's starting to cool with all these ingredients that we put in there, but this is the perfect dip just like this. If you want to put some, put this on crackers or dip some chips into this, aside from needing a whole bunch more cheese, it is perfect. It is good to go. You could throw it in the oven just like this, heat up, and then serve, but we're going with bread bowls because I love bread. So let's fill these up one by one, and again, the shape may be unique, so you might use a little bit more in one than the other, but you can really stuff these bad boys completely full. Just get a little bit in there, and then you can always add a little bit more on top and just kind of force it in. As long as you didn't go too deep into the sides, you can really pack these bad boys full. And then we will hit them with a little bit more Parmesan cheese on top, just because it tastes good and it gives a nice golden crust. As you can see here, this was at 350 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. You can even broil it for a couple minutes at the end, just get it super nice and crispy on top. You can prepare these in advance and then bake them before serving. Obviously, the spinach dip will kind of heat through and get nice and creamy and cheesy and hot, and the bread bowl will heat up too. So I mean, the combination of the warm dip inside of the warm crusty bread bowl is just perfect, and everybody gets their own. You don't have to worry about, hey, did Uncle Jimmy double dip again? I don't want to share with that guy. You get your own bowl, you can double dip, you can go crazy, you can have at it. Speaking of having at it, I think I shall, so I will grab myself a plate and put my own personal spinach artichoke dip bread bowl on it, and I'll grab a few pieces of the cube bread, some carrots because we're pretending to be healthy, some very nice crackers, and some tortilla chips because I forgot the pita chips, but these work just as well. And then I'm gonna get in there. You can see this is super nice and thick and creamy and cheesy, but it's also nice and hot, so it just complements whatever you're putting on perfectly. You can dip into it, you can top whatever you have with it. Obviously, you can pair this with whatever you want. You can eat it with a spoon, you can go crazy. But the whole point of putting a bread bowl is this. You can see the texture on this. I mean, it's just such a great texture. It tears away, it's chewy, it's crispy, and this is why I prefer it in a bread bowl, because not only can you eat it as you go, but if you get that perfect bite where the dip almost baked into the bread, like it's just such an awesome bite. I'm gonna continue scooping this thing up until it just is gone piece by piece by piece. And here's that perfect bite that I was talking about. You can see the bread and the dip almost become one, and for some reason all I have left are these carrots, but can't even leave these. The dip is too good. Carrots are good for you. Eat your veggies, kids. And while you're at it, eat your spinach and artichoke bread bowl. You can fill these with soup. You could pack them with anything you like. I highly recommend you try this recipe first, because the only thing that beats food on a stick is food in an edible bowl.